Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Seeds and Weeds podcast, brought to you by Small House Farm. Join us as we talk with gardeners, foragers, herbalists, chefs, and community activists to explore the many ways that plants impact our cultures and cuisines, our history, and our future. I'm your host, Bevan Cohen, and this is Seeds and Weeds. Howdy, friends. Welcome back to the show. We're going to be hanging out with Wendi Phan from the very popular YouTube channel, Wendyland. Wendi grows an incredible assortment of rare and exotic edible plants in her suburban garden in Los Angeles, California. We're going to be talking about growing exotic edibles in small spaces, some of her most popular YouTube videos, and some of Wendi's suggestions and tips for those of us that are interested in growing some of these exotic plants. When we booked the interview, Wendi sent me a few packages of tea to sample. One was a jasmine green tea, and the other one was a tea made from chrysanthemum flowers. Now, this jasmine green tea is something that's available on Wendi's website, so I thought it'd be fun to sample the tea during the interview. So you're going to get to hear some of our tasting notes, and we'll also learn how the tea is harvested and processed. Wendi grows some pretty wild stuff in her little garden, and she offers an incredible selection of live plants and seeds, so you can grow these exotic plants too. On her website, she's got things like Egyptian spinach, pink celery, bitter melons, caper plants, Barbados gooseberry, heavenly blue milkweed, and so much more. It was really fun just scrolling through her online store, just reading about all the different plants. There's also pages full of information on how to care for all of the plants, plus recipes, and she's got a blog full of fun stories about all of her adventures in Wendyland. Of course, Wendi's YouTube channel has hundreds of videos from her garden, and she demonstrates how to care for the plants, and she shares simple ways to transform these unique botanicals into healthy and delicious meals. Wendi was super fun to spend some time with, and it was extra fun getting to sit down and drink some of the delicious tea while we talked. Now, before we jump into the interview, I just want to say thank you to our community over on Patreon. Our Patreon community directly supports much of the work that we do here at Small House Farm, including this podcast, our educational programming, as well as our efforts to preserve and share rare and unique heirloom seeds. If you'd like to learn more about how you can support our work and enjoy a number of benefits through your membership, you can find a link to our Patreon down in the show notes or over on our website, which is seedsandweedspodcast.com. I'd like to welcome our newest members, including Christy Nather, Lynn Buston, Ty, Diana Scott, Trina Oskvarek, Carmen Pagan, Julie Welsh, and Catherine Nightingale. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Wendi Phan is a small space gardener who shares her passion for gardening through YouTube and other social media platforms, featuring rare plants, do-it-yourself projects, and vertical gardening. She inspires others to nurture their green thumbs and grow food in limited spaces. Wendi also offers a curated selection of plants and specialty teas in her online store. Wendi, welcome to the podcast, my friend. I've really been looking forward to hanging out with you today.
Thank you, Bevan. It's so great to be here. I'm excited.
Another thing that I've been looking forward to is tasting this wonderful tea that you sent. I've been waiting to try it until we got together. It's this Jasmine Classic green tea that you sent me. So I'm going to get that steeping right away. I haven't even started pouring the tea yet. I just got the bag out and it smells so good.
Yeah, isn't it? I'm going to drink it with you. I'm so excited too. So do you have the jasmine right now?
I got the jasmine. Yep.
Awesome. This is such a way to go, especially, going into winter. It's nice to have that fresh, scent of flowers and tea and just something warm in the morning. Cause a lot of times you see at the stores they carry a lot of them are it's like a fragrance. So it's artificially scented or flavored. And so this one, it's actually, they picked those batches of fresh flowers that we would traditionally use this traditional craftsmanship to infuse into the tea. So this tea you're drinking is actually, they harvest it early in the season in spring. So that first flush of leaves, they're just hand picked. And so they would infuse these fresh jasmine in it. So they literally would wait for the best time where the jasmine bloom. And they would pick that first batch and let it absorb to infuse into the tea leaves. And they would do that 6 times. That is the minimum they do.
Pretty amazing. So I was reading about it on your website and it says that the tea leaves, they're always harvested. There's a particular spring holiday in China and they like to harvest before that. Could you tell us why this harvesting time matters, why that's so important?
Yeah. So a lot of times in Chinese, in the traditional, even the way they farm or the way they eat their food, is kind of based on the lunar calendar. So it's based on the moon cycle and, they would follow. And usually around the February to March time. And this is the time where the true spring comes. So they would pick pick these flushes the leaves. And some even have like the super early ones are which pretty much like buds, like the leaf buds that we get from our like stone fruits or something. And that is known to be like the sweeter and less bitter, and you get less that astringent taste. So usually you'd find these type of like a good quality tea, they would usually pick them during that time of the year. So it stays like really smooth when you drink it.
That's amazing. So there's no actual jasmine flowers in the tea. It's just the green tea leaves, but they've just been mingling and hanging out with these flowers. Wow. It's picked up so much. I mean,
the tea absorbs so much flavor. I think that's just the nature of tea. Naturally, the camellia, That's
so cool. So how long does this tea need to steep?
So this tea, it depends on how you like it. If you like it kind of light, you can even steep it just for a couple of minutes. Or a little longer. And a little bit goes a long way with like a quality tea. Like this one, I can even brew it up to like 8 or 9 or 10 times and I still get the flavor out of it.
Okay, cool. Well, while the tea is steeping, before I start sipping on it, could you just tell our listeners a little bit about you, yourself, your life in Wendyland, and the work that you do?
Yes. So I am based in LA. I'm in Zone 10. I mainly garden out of like a patio space. I'm in a very urban setting. So that kind of became my thing that I teach about on like YouTube and social media. I do go tour and I travel sometimes whenever I get a chance to kind of talk about, gardening and rare plants and stuff. But specifically when it comes to my own space, I garden mainly out of like a 6 feet by like 50 feet long. And so it's kind of like an alleyway, but that is kind of how it pushed my creativity and how I have to become a little more handy in order to make things grow and make it work in my space. So that's how I kind of got into really like a lot of DIY and customizing, like trellises and building vertically. So anything that has to help me like build upwards or like stacking method. I'm just such an urban vertical gardener that focuses a lot on mostly leafy greens, herbs, and fragrance herbs. There's quite a bit of shade here, especially in the winter.
So the teas that you're offering on your website, that's kind of a relatively new thing for you. I think probably what you're most well known for, right, is that YouTube channel. How long have you been doing the YouTube?
Oh my goodness. So I've been gardening for a long time. So YouTube, my very first video I put out was like probably like 9 years ago. But I did start it with home decor. So like succulents and terrariums. And then I brought in the aquatic plants like the maramo. It was like a Japanese cultural thing where they really enjoy having them as pets and they live for a really long time. They're super slow growing. So I thought, let's just get some information to help people out and how to take care of them. So that's sort of like how my first video I put up on YouTube. And then someone noticed like there's like a rack of bananas in the background and asked me about it. And that's how the gardening thing kind of stepped in.
We got a YouTube channel here at Small House too. But it's funny. We got a couple of videos. Well, one of them is about making fire cider. And it's like, I don't know, it's a couple years old at this point. And it's consistently every day. It's one of our top videos. People just keep watching it. Do you have a video like that? Something that you made a while ago that's just for some reason just consistently popular all the time?
Yeah, I think the one that was a big hit that's still going is how to grow sweet potatoes. That's one of the videos that keeps going. And then the ginger video, because I was talking about how to grow ginger in a small space and kind of a shade garden. And I'll do also a lot of like container gardening, stuff like that.
That's cool. The container gardening and that small space gardening is obviously benefits folks with small spaces, but it's also useful information for any gardener, really.
Oh, definitely. It's so like more flexible, I think. Like, you can always redesign the space with it, move it where the light travels, or certain super invasive plants you don't want necessarily, grow it in the ground. Like then you can put in containers. It's much more controllable if you want to do experiments with it. Bring it in the winter if you're living somewhere, that actually like freezes over.
So your YouTube channel and much of the work that you're doing is sort of centered around these exotic plants and edibles. So what is one of the most exotic and unusual plants that you've ever eaten or grown? Maybe something our listeners haven't even heard of before.
I think it used to be like the most exotic thing, but I have been putting out a lot of information about that plant now. So it's probably still considered rare, but it's not like, the thing you've never, ever heard of in your life. But it's called the ashitaba plant. It's a Japanese herb.
Okay.
What's really unique about this plant, and I love it so much because it's versatile. First of all, it does pretty well in the shade. So yay! I planted right against the wall. It is a biannual, but it's like this beautiful, very delicate looking leaves, and it kind of grows like a celery. But the coolest part about it is that it bleeds this bright yellow sap, and that's supposed to be like the most medicinal, potent part of this herb.
What do you use it for?
Traditionally, they would dry it to make tea. but I like to juice it the most just because it's easier. And then the rest, I would use it for tea. I can also slice it thinly and just do like a quick blanch in like a soup or a stir fry. But those are just various ways I have done. I mostly juice them.
Say the name of the plant again for me.
Yeah, it's called ashitaba.
I want to come back to this tea now. I'm drinking it. It is fantastic. It is so delicate. I haven't even taken the tea bag out, so it's been steeping for, well, this whole time, and it's not bitter at all. This is incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it too. I bring it everywhere. Everyone always requests for that when I travel. I'm like, what did you like from the States? And they're like, can you get me some jasmine tea?
So now for those of us that are getting really turned on here and we want to start growing something exotic of our own, what do you recommend to growers, especially that may be new to growing some of these exotic plants?
Let's see. I'll start with the one that's not super exotic yet, but I think it is a bit more rare, like hard to find. Say like the pineapple sage, but I grow the one that's like the lime green leaves. Oh, it's like super, just it pops, especially if you put it like right next to like a darker green leaves, or I have this variety of sweet potatoes that's like deep reddish purple leaves, and you put that next to like a plant like that, is just gonna pop. And then it brings like hummingbirds. The flowers of these pineapple sage is like it has a little slightly different shade of pink. It's more towards fuchsia than a reddish pink, like the regular, like the more common variety. That one kind of requires just, I think, part shade is fine too. So full sun to part shade is fine, and it's a pretty easy one to grow. So I would say if you like herbs, you like things that smell good, a little more unique, so great to add a little bit of that in your salads. It just adds like a fruitiness, a sweetness. It makes really great tea too. There's also like peach sage. I think that one's also slightly not super rare, but also smells really good. So fruity, that smell of that. It has like really fuzzy leaves. I like texture. Let's see. Another one called, it's like a mugwort, but it smells like Coca-Cola. So that we're getting a little more uncommon things now. And it has this beautiful bluish silver kind of a hue. So really gorgeous, soft, very delicate looking. It looks almost like frills, like the ends of like cilantro plant, like right before it flowers, it's getting like really lacy kind of leaves. It looks kind of like that, but it's like silvery blue, and it's really hardy too, like easy to grow. And it smells like Coca-Cola.
That's wild. I love this idea of growing these plants that are not only just like, useful, edible, makes tea, but also just so beautiful and different. So it's just like, such an adventure walking through the garden.
It totally is, because like I really enjoy like the straight on like farm grid style if you have a lot of space. But for me, I just want to have like a garden, like something more designed out so I can go as if I'm taking a walk through and really enjoying this little space. So I like to use like as much edible plants as I can and a little more unique selections that I can actually place them in more like a garden style. You know what I mean? A little more decorative. Yeah. And these unique plants, that's like my whole thing about growing in a small space, is trying to grow things that I can't really buy.
I totally dig it. Wendy, this has been so much fun. And I got to tell you, this tea, fantastic. I filled my cup up twice already while we've been hanging out.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I'm loving it so much. So what are the links that folks are going to need so they can connect with you, check out the YouTube channel, and get their hands on some of these delicious teas?
My YouTube channel is Wendiland. So it's WendiIland. It's just spelled just like my name, Wendy, with an I, like ice cream. So you search me up through YouTube on Wendiland. I'll pop up also on social media, either Wendiland or IG on Instagram is It's Wendiland. So ITS Wendiland. Wendiland.com would be the website where you can grab the tea. Or I also do some propagations and some plants, a little bit more those rare, small, more selective kind of plants. I do offer plant starts and seeds on my website.
Fantastic. Wendy, thank you again, my friend. This was great.
Thank you so much. That was so much fun.
Well, that's all she wrote. We are at the end of yet another show. Big thanks to Wendi Phan for being our guest today, and to all of you for tuning in. Remember, if you enjoy the podcast, you can always support the show by joining our community on Patreon. You can find that link and so much more at seedsandweedspodcast.com. This episode was edited and produced by all of us here at Small House Farm, and the music we're enjoying right now is Clean Fun by Alana Jordan. Thanks again for joining us, friends. I'm Bevan Cohen, and we'll see you next time.